have mixed up 5 ounces of my native sand, and there's just enough water in it that a little bit sits on top, if you can see that. 5 ounces of silica flour versus 5 ounces of lime. The lime is much lighter, much fluffier, much less dense. I don't really care how much this takes. I just want to get it to where it's saturated with water. Might have put too much in. No, it'll be just fine. Kind of looks a lot like plaster. Trying something a little different here. I'm shooting with the camera's front I'm shooting with the phone's front camera so that I can see when I'm in frame. And that's working pretty good. The iPod has a 1080p front camera, and this is a newer device, this iPhone X, so I assume the front is at least 1080p, and that worked nice. Okay, now we're gonna do the lime. Let me rinse off my spoon first. I checked the recycle code on this plastic. It's number 5. I think that's polypropylene. And it has a melting point of 370 F. And I'm going to bake these in my convection oven in the house at 200 F, 200 Fahrenheit. So, ooh, this looks sticky, icky. This is going to take a lot of water. I see cracks in its future. Should have cut this stuff into the water instead of adding water to the powder, but we're getting there. Pretty much have to use the lime, but we got a choice between sand and silica flour to some degree, but there it is. So let's take these. Oh, yeah, our sand is fine. See, the sand has settled. I can pour the water off. There. That's actually a pretty good sign in terms of the sand not shrinking. And it's easy to tell these apart. The silica flour is not near as full. Okay. There we are. Sand, silica flour, and lime. These have been in the oven and baked until they're quite thoroughly dry. I ran it at 200 degrees and eventually kicked it up to 300. And the plastic's supposed to melt at 375, but my oven's a little hot on the back side, and it messed up a couple of these guys. We'll start with the worst, which is the local clay. And before we do that, just like to note that this is the current state of the bentonite, which has not been in the oven. Here's the same 5 grams, but it's in my local clay. And as you can see, it's cracked and pulled away from the edge, so there's definite shrinkage there. And it's kind of hard to tell some of this with the distortion from the heat, but it's definitely got shrinkage. Let's see if we can get it to come out. There we go. And you can see it broke here, but it's still held together there except for the bits that flaked off. The bits that flaked off the top. You still just have the one crack. This is my local sand, and as you can see, there's a little spalling along the top. But other than that, it's pretty much crack free. Of course, you wouldn't expect sand to bond very hard, so maybe that has something to do with it, but it don't look like this sand is a major source of shrinkage. It seems to be tight up against the walls of the cup. And I broke it taking it out, but as you can see, it readily goes back to regular sand, so there's no real bonding there or anything. But neither is it a source of shrinkage. Not to speak of, not compared to the clay. Next, we'll look at the silica flour. And again, it's no cracks. And okay, I'm back. I imagine this is a lot like the sand. It really has no cohesive properties like the clay. I mean, the clay actually sticks together. Sand just kind of, yeah, it was together till you touched it and kind of fell apart. Top is spalting. Yep, it all come undone. So again, it's just like the sand. So we can just crunch this up, put it back in the container. Now let's look at the lime. Lime I can get locally, so I don't have to worry about saving this. I mean, within 60 miles anyway. But I'm wondering how much strength there is in this. If there's any, we know it's not vitrified, but is there any concrete-like thing going on? That's tough.
There we go.
Okay, we have our lime cake. And it's still fairly clean. Gonna try to get this one out. Moves, but don't go past the edges. See if that helped any. There we are. And I'm just going to let this continue to dry. I'm going to let it set out side here. And We'll check in on it in a few days to see if it's got any hardness beyond just a dried collection of grains.